So we wanted to have a few words from a remarkable young change maker here in DC who is really helping to activate voices of a next generation engaged in bipartisan engagement in politics with young leaders. He's the president of the Millennial Action Project. So let's give a warm welcome to Stephen Olikara.
Good afternoon. Wow, what a moving presentation. Let me first say thank you to Rich and Stephen and the whole team for inviting me to be here today. And I want to also take this moment to thank God for not only bringing me here to join with all of you, but for helping me discover my purpose and my life mission. I actually discovered my purpose here in the church, where I grew up in Wisconsin. But it wasn't sitting in the pews, nor was it standing up here. It was actually sitting over there behind the drums. I was sitting behind the drums, playing jazz and gospel and other styles of music. And before I got into politics, that was my life, playing music. And we would play in all different types of churches, of all different denominations. And we would just listen. We would play a little bit, and then we'd listen, we'd hear what people have to say. And I thought it was appropriate, because jazz, as an art form, is a uniquely American style of music. It is a call and response art form, especially improvised jazz, because you have to listen before you can play. And I think it's important to remember that in these politically divisive moments, because jazz itself was the combination of African American and European influences coming together in New Orleans, not to find the least common denominator, not to compromise our values and beliefs, but actually to lift all of us higher and find a higher art form. So that was me coming into this town of DC. And it was so profound for me in Milwaukee. Is anyone here from the Midwest by chance, or mostly? Okay, we got a few. Anyone from Wisconsin? Really? Where in Wisconsin? Beloit, beautiful. I'm from Brookfield. So one of the things about the greater Milwaukee area is that it is one of the most, unfortunately, ethnically, racially, and politically segregated metro areas in the country. So music for me was that vehicle to bridge those divides, to go across this one street, 124th Street, that would divide these two areas. And it occurred to me one day that everything that we're doing in my jazz ensembles is exactly what we need in our democracy today. Because the heart of our democracy is extremely weakened right now. And it was clear to me that nothing that was happening on the mainstream political stage was making an effort to bring us together in the ways that I think is truly American. And so it was in that context when a few colleagues and I came out here, we founded the Millennial Action Project. And it's based on a pretty fundamental belief that not only is finding common ground essential to the American experience, and essential to my own personal experience growing up as a person of color in a 97% Caucasian community, the most conservative community in Wisconsin, but also based on another idea, that young people are central to political transformation. And you know this. You know this with your kids, or if you're young yourself, you know this. You're not born to discriminate against people. You're not born to think the other side is evil. These are things that have become, unfortunately, symptoms of the political moment that we're living in. But the whole idea with Millennial Action Project is that young people, this new generation coming up, the millennial generation that's now old enough to start running for political office, has this unique opportunity now to reach up and make cooperation the new political paradigm of our era. And ironically, the reason we feel strongly about this is because of what we've learned throughout history. You know, a couple days ago, I was walking through a hotel, and to my great surprise, I ran into Ambassador Andrew Young. Wow. I've grown up idolizing that man. I've grown up idolizing the entire Dr. King movement. And it reminded me of the moment when I decided to found the Millennial Action Project. I was living in Foggy Bottom, and routinely I would run by the memorials. I remember standing in front of the Dr. King Memorial, and I had this realization. Each and every one of these quotes on that wall were delivered by a man who was in his 20s and 30s. He delivered "I Have a Dream" when he was 34. He led the Montgomery bus boycott when he was 26. And then I kept walking. And then I came to the Jefferson Memorial. And I realized Thomas Jefferson lived to be 83 years old, but he wrote the Declaration of Independence when he was 33. I looked into this more. James Madison, the great reconciler at the Constitutional Convention, he lived to be 85, but he wrote the Constitution when he was 36, first elected when he was 29. It turns out most of the founding fathers were actually under the age of 40 in 1776. Political transformation in our country comes from young leaders. And that's why when we go across the country, we tell young people who are joining our organization, this is not about being at the kids' table. This is about being the adults in the room. It's about reminding us that in this era and in our generation, we do not have to be these divisive and divided states of America. We can remind ourselves and reaffirm for our generation that we're the United States of America. Let's make that come true. Thank you.
Great stuff. Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you, Stephen.